that moment at the start of a London Loop walk where we're trying to find the first sign, the first London Loop sign that tells us we're heading in the right direction. And here, look, I can see Kingswood Lane, which is where the directions start. So just across the road there, Tithe Pit Shore Lane is where we ended our last section of the London Loop. And this is where it continues. One of the things I most like saying at the beginning of a video, we are back on the London Loop. Oh yes, back on the London Loop. I finished section 5 of the London Loop over there, just across the road, Hamsey Green, remembering I'm walking the London Loop in the anti-clockwise direction, the reverse direction. Why there is a direction, I don't really know. And so I'm just starting here, section 4, from Hamsey Green, finishing in West Wickham. And I really do love walking the London Loop. It always delivers, the London Loop always delivers. So we've got a great day ahead of us. For those of you that haven't watched any of my previous London Loop videos, I started the London Loop back in January 2018, and I started with section 17 from Enfield Lock to Cockfosters, and wow, what a great section that was. And that's what got me hooked on the London Loop. But I've been eking it out over the ensuing 3.5 years. The London Loop is it's a 150-mile long orbital path around the edge of London. My wife described it as an M25 for walkers, which is pretty apt. A lot of it passes through green space. It really opens your eyes to just how green a city this is. It's divided into 24 sections, and I have now walked 13 of those sections. So this is my 14th section, section 4. And this section's about 10 miles long, so which is pretty long for a London Loop section. I'm not sure if there might be one that's longer than that or two. They tend to be between 6 and 10 miles long. I love it. I'm going to keep saying that. I won't get bored of telling you how much I love walking the London Loop. And I'll put a link below to a playlist of my other London Loop walks so you can see the journey from Enfield to this point down here, right South London. Took me ages to get here today. It's 3:30 in the afternoon. Well, it's nearly 4 o'clock actually. It's 3:50, and yeah, it took me the best part of 2 hours to get here from Leytonstone today. So who cares? And the London Loop, it's like a vortex of its own logic. Until you see that first London Loop sign, there's always a little bit of doubt in your mind. I'm not sure if I should have turned right back there over a stile and across a field, but I'm going to keep going along Kingswood Lane because that's what it says in the instructions. I'm navigating with a combination of the map and instructions from the Transport for London website, which I used completely, wholly on the previous section because I didn't have an Ordnance Survey map for that section. But today I do have an Ordnance Survey map, which only really starts further up the lane here. So I'm going a little bit blind. Of course, those directions go in a clockwise direction, if that makes sense, the written directions and the maps. So I'm sort of reading them backwards. So it did talk about crossing a stile and turning left into Kingswood Lane, but it rather sounds like I should have done that. Let's wait and see where we end up. So I'm now fairly certain I was going the wrong way. Basically I carried on along here. This matched the directions in the text, but there's no London Loop sign here, and normally there would be. But having cross-referenced with my phone the directions in the OS map, this is the direction now, in the direction of Elm Farm, so over this stile. So let's hope that's the first time And the last time that I go in the wrong direction on this London Loop walk, it has happened before, it won't shock you to hear, but not that often. And here we go, our first London Loop sign of the day. Look, I love someone's had to write London Loop on with a Sharpie. It's eroded over time. There's also another path. It's interesting to come these local paths here. You've got the Tandridge Border Path. That's an intriguingly exotic name. Just had a nice chat with a couple back there who walked all of the London Loop previously, and now they just pick a section to do of a weekend and head out and rewalk their favourite sections. It's great, it stays with you. Actually, they said when they did their first circuit, they did it over a period of 2 years, sticking to the summer. I've tended to do summer and winter. I haven't gone out very often in the spring or the autumn on the loop. I don't know why that is. There's no rhyme or reason to it, but I've certainly done a few very muddy sections in the winter, but particularly my first one, that section from Cockfosters to Enfield. In my case, Enfield to Cockfosters was quite muddy. Right, I need to focus here because going down quite a steep path here, and I don't want to slip over again and damage my ankle. I should say how great it is to be back after a 2-week break of uploading to YouTube. It was a very necessary time to kind of recharge the batteries, to look ahead to the walks I want to do for the rest of the year. So thanks for being patient with me and putting up with that absence of videos for a couple of weeks. I hope you managed to dig down into the back catalogue. There are well over 200 videos in the walking vlog series, so hopefully you found a few that you hadn't watched before and watched those in those 2 weeks. That downhill has become a steep uphill. Lots of flint down here in the ground. Whew, a bit out of puff. The London Loop really does highlight how many working farms there still are around London, which is not something you associate with the fringe of London, is it? You can probably hear in that last bit, I'm still puffed out from the climb up the hill, but it's blissfully flat now. There are quite a few hills on this section, some really big hills, which I'm really looking forward to. I've been on my radar for a while. We're going across the Addington Hills. There's quite a few earthworks as well around this part of South London, which is really fascinating. I don't think the London Loop goes that close to any of them or many of them. There might be a burial mound or two that we pass, not mentioned in the Transport for London notes, which I think is really quite interesting. Not considered worthy of a kind of did you know little pull-out block that they have on the instructions. It's lovely to see a London Loop sign there amongst these thistles that have gone all furry, and we're going to walk parallel to the road for a short section. September 2021 is actually the 20th anniversary of the London Loop, and the Ramblers are celebrating that anniversary. I'm not entirely sure how they're celebrating it, but I imagine with a walk, right? It's the Ramblers Association celebrating a walking path. Surely it's got to involve a walk. So the majority of you, I'm sure, will be watching this video in September 2021. What better time to get out on the London Loop? So at this point, the London Loop seems to join with the Vanguard Way. The Vanguard Way sounds great. It's a 66.2 mile long distance path that goes from East Croydon to Newhaven on the south coast. That could be a good one to do one day, couldn't it? So we're walking through Puplet Wood. Puplet Wood, that's a great name, isn't it? And this apparently is one of the oldest surviving parishes in London. This is the parish of Chelsham and Farleigh. I don't know how old it is. I have to try and get some information and pop it on the screen here. If nothing pops on the screen, it's because I didn't find anything. Isn't this great? What a beautiful wood. At the end of Puplet wood, we're going to turn into Selsdon wood. This is something like the Vanguard Way sign. Might have to look into doing that. So could do that in 3 days, I guess. And then we've got Walker's Welcome, which is what we always want to see. Here's a great map. So we're here. I think we go up this way. You can see all the other woods within this wood. Avis Grove, Beech Grove here. Hazel Coppice, which is basically, I think, where we've just come. I might be wrong. The Gorses, Broomwood, that's a name you see around. Hillocks Wood, Greenhill Shore. This is London. This is a corner of London. Who knew about this if you didn't live in South London? Isn't it great? And these woodlands here would have once been part of the county of Surrey before fringes of Surrey got gobbled up by the expanding city of London. Look at this landscape of flints that we're walking over here on the edge of the North Downs. I think we take the path to the left here. Well, I say I think, look. Yeah, we're going along Addington border. It's an incredible day out for a Londoner. This T-junction path up ahead would normally throw me, but look, the London Loop sign is here to point the way ahead. If it wasn't, probably go the wrong way. Is there a finer thing to do on a Sunday afternoon than to go out for a walk and end up in a pub for a couple of pints afterwards? I don't know if there is. I know I often film my walks during the week, and I love to do an evening wander, particularly an urban wander, particularly good in the evening. I like a good night walk, but even if I film my YouTube video during the week, I still do a Sunday walk. Rarely miss a Sunday walk. I love it. And we've got another pretty steep climb up this path here between the houses. It's been a bit up and downhill again, hasn't it? A bit like the previous section was really dramatically up and downhill. This is a very rare sighting of suburbia on this walk. Got a bus there, 433 bus to West Croydon, and we're just going to cross the road and carry on up here. So it's a very bucolic walk. I love these paths that kind of slice between the houses. They remind you of kind of childhood explorations, venturing into lands unknown. So we cross the road at the end of Ashen Vale here, and you can see where the London Loop carries on, just the other side of that bus stop, marked by a pylon. What a perfect position for that pylon. When you walk through these little strips of woodland here with the houses either side, it's really a kind of reminder that they built these houses and these streets in the woods, and this is all that left. This little strip here is the kind of remainder of what was once a much bigger area of woodland. Really see it through the trees, but here we have a water tower, and actually quite unusually it's making a real hum, a real throbbing hum, but they're such majestic, almost, I don't know, mysterious structures in the landscape. Water towers, I'm easily seduced by a water tower. I was about to talk about my third book, the one I've recently started working on, but I just realised I got to the point where the London Loop splits from the Vanguard Way. I think it's just here, so I was about to, let's have a look. No, we carry on. Let's watch out for a split. I'm still not convinced. Straight up. I've just started working on my third book. When I say my third book, obviously everyone has a book that they write that doesn't get published. I wrote a book about living in Modena. Maybe that'll see the light of day in the future, who knows. But anyway, started work on my third proper book, and a water tower plays a big role in this section I'm writing at the moment. I've actually got what I've written in my bag with me here. Really enjoying writing it. Quite different to the previous two books, but yeah, a water tower, which I must go and visit this water tower soon. Here's the split. Here's the split. There you go. London Loop goes down here, away from the Vanguard Way. So we go this way. And we are not far away from Addington Hills, which is going to give us some fantastic views back across London. This is actually the split, the point where the path split. The Vanguard Way carries on to Coombe Wood, and the London Loop goes this way. I think we're going to leave Little Heath Woods and across this meadow here and towards the Addington Hills. This is a great view along these line of pylons here. This is a really beautiful little stretch here. Is it a foretaste of what awaits at Addington? Across this area here called Bramley Bank. I tell you what, the London Loop's a great advert for Croydon, the London Borough of Croydon. You could see the concrete remains of the base of a building here. That's by the road. It could have been anything, right? It could have been a pumping station, could have been an electricity substation, anything like that. But it also could have been, given the fact that it's on a hill, a prominent position, it could have been an anti-aircraft gun or some sort of Second World War infrastructure. It's a possibility. Up through another little sleeve of woodland here between the houses. So we're going to go through this car park here, through a little bit of woodland, and then we'll be at Addington Hill, which I'm really looking forward to. This is called Heathfield. I love the way someone's gone round writing London Loop and filling it in on these old signs here with like a Sharpie. So this is a curious direction to go, and it's obviously directing us here because of Heathfield House there. Obviously some sort of grand house, and you can see there's a pond here. It's all very picturesque. The question is, where the hell does the London Loop go from here? Let's go and find out. Well, if I'm reading the directions backwards, it looks like we go up these steep steps here, continuing the up and down theme of this walk. When was the last time we saw some of these guys? Some real London Loop signs. So we continue on the other side of this road here, past a really lovely water tower. And I think here we've got the Croydon tram tracks. I have never been on the Croydon tram, would you believe? I've never done it. It's been on my list of videos to do actually, but I've never done it. And there it goes, like a mythical beast. It's lucky for me that we've had a tram going both directions, because I now have to cross the tracks. I think, I hope, because that's what I've done. You don't cross the tracks back there. That was the wrong thing to do. I'll leave it in the video because I do make mistakes. You just go along the path, and then you see this London Loop sign pointing to Addington Hills, which I'm so excited about. Well, it's not a particularly clear day, so I'm not sure how good the view is going to be. But actually we do cross the train tracks here at Coombe Lane Tram Station. And here comes a tram, just as I was about to cross, so I'll stand back. Right, nothing coming the other way, so it's safe to cross. It's a good job I'm so dedicated to walking the London Loop, otherwise I'd have been tempted to get that. And here we see on the other side of the station a London Loop sign, and we start the climb of the Addington Hills. And here's some information. The sign is history. It was acquired in 4 parts over a 45-year period. First published in a public meeting in 1874 by the Croydon Board of Health. It lies on a plateau of Blackheath bed pebbles to a height of 460 feet. It's 140 metres above sea level. We're going through some great woodland here on the Addington Hills. Obviously I'm hoping for a good view at some point. Of course, it's very easy to lose your sense of direction in the woods. As I well know, losing my direction in Epping Forest, where I walk all the time. So walking here to the woods of Addington Hills, where I've never been before, really good chance of me losing my sense of direction. But I'm following this path that's kind of meandering a bit, but I think this is the direction of the viewing point. So I'm blatantly using my phone to find my way to the viewing platform. I was going completely the wrong way. So hopefully this path will lead us there. I mean, it may not. It's about right. There's a Chinese restaurant in the middle of this wood here. It's curious. For me, in the past, it's the really big open spaces where I've completely lost the London Loop, which really doesn't really matter anyway, because you can just freewheel it as long as you exit at the right point. But it was the same on Hamsey Heath. Partly that was me following my own instincts of where I remembered walking on Hamsey Heath. Same here, and it happened in the previous section actually, but here we have a London Loop sign as I'm saying that. So there you go. Spring Park, Petts Wood. It doesn't say Addington Hills, does it? Oh, that's the way we'll go. Wow, what a really beautiful, stunning view this. You see the radio towers at Crystal Palace. You see the needle of the Shard in the distance and the towers of the City of London. And you can see the Isle of Dogs over there, the great big towers around Canary Wharf. And I think in the distance behind that, those sort of white towers, I think that's the development around Stratford. So it's kind of incredible, isn't it? And you can also see to the hills on the far side of London, the other side of the London Basin, around just north of Finchley and Hampstead, and heading around west towards Horsenden Hill. What an incredible view. We now have to walk down the hill now through all this gorse with its bright flowers and this ragwort here. They'll be soon covered in caterpillars of the cinnabar moth. And you can really see the soil we're dealing with here. It's kind of really sandy, gravelly soil, isn't it? A bit of the geology of London underneath your feet. So we come out of the Addington Hills onto this road here, and I think we turned for a place called Spring Park. I think we may have a bit of golf course. I'm not entirely sure how much of the walk we've got left to do. Not a huge amount, a couple of miles I think. Great to see a lawn on the other side of the road. I could do with a bit of refreshment. And the London Loop carries on somewhere down there. I'm not entirely sure where, but I'll find it. Here is my walking fuel for the rest of the walk. A bottle of Sprite and a curried lamb Jamaican patty. I seem to remember having a Jamaican patty on a previous section of the London Loop. I think it was one of the ones over in West London somewhere. It's a good bit of walking tucker, that is. Well, I hope so anyway. Down a very dark path now. It's 7:05 in the evening. Sun sets at 8:20. I may run out of daylight. I think we've got a good 2.5 miles to go, which is a good hour's walk. The Jamaican lamb patty was decent. The pastry was nice, good flavour. Could have done with a bit more filling though. It was kind of almost like a kind of thick jam layer of filling, if you know what I mean, rather than chunks. So that's the only criticism I would make. You can see the London Loop signs beside the road over there. I'm just going to follow the road in this direction. It's lovely and quiet, lovely and quiet. Getting a tinge of recognition here because I think we're in Shirley, Croydon, and last time I was down here I was with my friend Ian Miller, wonderful writer, who also contributed to my Kensal Rise project. I'll put a link below to Ian's contributions, great contributions. And we walked along the river Beck. We walked on the Ravensbourne and then the Beck. And the source of the Beck is not, it's around here somewhere. I seem to remember walking along this road with Ian about this time in the evening actually. I'll link to that walk below, but this definitely rings a bell. London Borough of Croydon, no cycling bylaw. Interesting. Pinewood Scout Centre over the road. I'm sure there's a few people watching this who will be familiar with that place. You won't pick up on my mic. There's a really loud music festival over there, which is not a sound we've heard for quite some time. But I'm going to pass through these woods here on the final stretch, the final mile or two. Towards an end of a walk, you'll notice the absence of those shots where I put the camera down and walk past the camera. That's because I've reached the point now where I don't want to walk past the camera 20 yards, turn around, go back and get it. So you have to imagine those shots in your head now. I haven't been walking that far. Probably I've done about 8.5 miles by this point. But yeah, far enough for me to far enough for me to dispatch with those shots. This is another one of those woods, although it looks quite substantial in a way. We're surrounded by houses not far away. You can see them through the trees. It's called Spring Park near here. So I'm wondering if this is the wood where we found the source of the Beck. I'll have to look it up when I go home. I know it was somewhere around Shirley. And Spring Park's a bit of a giveaway, although I imagine there's a lot of springs in these hills, so it could be meaningless. It seems to be getting nearer that music now. It seems to get louder and then further away, louder and then further away. I think what we have here are the newest generation of London Loop signs, very clear, very unambiguous, pointing me off the path out of the woods. Through here, mind you, whatever through here is, on the OS map, it's a continuation of woodland. There's a woodland called 3 Halfpenny Wood. On my Google Maps it says it's Spring Park, but look, it's a lovely bit of open meadowland, isn't it? It's that time of the day now, 7:30, and the only people you'll see in spaces like this in the outer parts of London are dog walkers. You might see a jogger or two, but you get people taking their dogs out in the last hour of light. It's a lovely feel to being out here at this time of day, because you know other things are going on around you, in the streets around you. But the open spaces are free of anybody, really. So into the final bit of woodland here. I think this is 3 Halfpenny Wood. Occasionally I do hack the London Loop route. I'm doing so here because I'd much rather get a bit of this kind of field path action on my walk today. I've had quite a lot of woodland and this is too nice to resist. I think you're allowed to go rogue every now and again on the London Loop if you see somewhere which is more appealing to you heading in the same direction. I've done it on a few sections actually, and it's often been where I've seen a really lovely bit of field path, which is footpath and is, you know, very near where the London Loop is. I think, well, actually I'm going to go that way instead. And I did it once on the second section of the London Loop. I walked from Cockfosters to Boreham Wood because there was a chunk of it went through an area that I was quite familiar with. I'd walked a few times there with Nick Papademetrio, and it didn't go through the site of the Battle of Barnet, which I really wanted to go. So I did take quite a big detour there to go and visit the Battle of Barnet site, because that was much more appealing. So here at Spring Park, this is great, and we've had no field path walks at all on this walk. A bit of woodland, quite a bit of woodland, but look at this. Isn't this delightful in the last sort of hour of light, or in this case last half an hour of light? What a lovely place to be. What I'm contemplating doing now, and I've almost made my mind up, is actually saving the last little section of this section of the London Loop, of section 4, to the next time. I'll tell you why, because it's 8 o'clock and you can probably tell, I'm not sure, but the light is fading and we've got about another 20 minutes of light, which I can't really film in the dark basically with this camera. Well, any camera really, you can in the city because you find street lights, but out here. And it wouldn't normally matter too much, except that right near the end of this section of the London Loop, there's an earthwork. And I really want to spend a little bit of time exploring that earthwork. I'd also quite like to read a little bit about it as well. So I'm thinking I might save that when I can come back and start my next London Loop walk there. Spend a little bit of time with that earthwork, because it's not something I want to rush, or it's not something I don't want to be able to appreciate because it's pitch black. So I may visit it on my way to the station, but maybe I'll just cut that bit out, call it quits. Well, up here, I'll just take a shortcut up to Hayes Station, because the London Loop crosses this rugby field here and then goes on the other side of the road there through a university building and all the rest of it. So I might save that for the next time. Let's wait and see. Might change my mind when I get up to the end here, but it's pretty gloomy. So I'm going to sign off here in Sparrow's Den playing fields, just short at the end of section 4 of the London Loop. We will come back another day and do it at the beginning in proper daylight, so I can explore that earthwork. That'd be a great start to section 3, which I will try and do in September during the month of the 20th anniversary celebration. Sounds like a good idea. So the London Loop is delivered once more, and I can't thank you enough for coming with me on this fantastic walk on the London Loop. We're getting there. That's what's that, how many sections have I done now? 14 sections out of 24. Well, 14 plus a, minus a little tiny bit at the end. Hope you stay safe, hope you stay well, and as I always like to say, I look forward to seeing you on the next walk, wherever that may be. Although this time I have a pretty good idea of where it's going to be. Where do you think it's going to be? Try and take a guess. How could I not do just one final walking shot to sign off? I actually think the gate over there is locked. I'm going to have to go all the way back now. I mean, not all the way back to Hamsey Green, that would be ridiculous. But how am I going to, oh, there's a car park up there, I can get out that way.